Okay, so today we're going to be hopefully doing some movement event 5 stuff, or is it 6? Movement event 6. So if we take a look right now, by the time we get to movement event 6, all that's happening is we're highlighting our space. So look, movement event 5, I hit enter. Movement event 6 is just highlighting a space, but we are no longer, we're not able to drop or pick up a stones or advance to the next movement. So let's get to it. So we know we're already rendering the highlight. We need to add in the drop stone function. Down. We need to add, right, 3 things. The drop a stone, the pick up a stone, why does it keep doing that? And the advance and or lock in 0 occupants on our mouse stone. So we go enter or return. Okay. So if we press down, we want to use our dropstone function, and that function takes in, let's double check, occupant and option. So the occupant we're trying to drop a stone into is our 3rd movement. So we'll say grid at index 3rd movement row, index 3rd movement column. So row is how many down, column is how many to the side. And then option, which is 3, I believe, because I believe in our 5, oh, we're actually option 4. We're actually option 4. So we need to make sure that our dropstone function has an option 4 for our dropped in 3rd movement space. So right here, we need another option. And if our option is equal to 4, then we want a variable called dropped in 3rd movement that gets incremented here. Okay, and then we will initialize this in our board reset function, as well as this is our reset function, as well as our player swap. So dropped in 2nd movement, and we want it dropped in 3rd movement. Okay, so now we've got an option 4. That's why it's offset. 4 is dropping it in a 3rd movement, because we have to be able to drop stones in our movement origin, which doesn't count as a move just yet, because we haven't moved. That's just where we came from. So that's why the option may be 4, but we're only dropping it in the 3rd movement. It's because we have to count for that movement origin. But now we should be okay to keep chugging along. We've got our option in here, so that should work. Now let's just go ahead and test and see if we're able to drop anything in that movement event 6. We are. And it looks like look at that, pressing down. Okay, so we only want to be able to drop a stone if love is pressed and our mouse stones.occupants is greater than 0. If we have a stone, we can drop it. Yeah. So let's go ahead and test that. Okay, cool. So now we need to pick up our stone if we press up, and we're trying to pick up a stone from our grid. Now let's see what our parameters for our pickup stone is. Occupant and option. And our option is what we pass in so that we know how many dropped in our space, because we can only pick up a stone that we've dropped. So if our option is 4 upon a pickup, we need to decrement our dropped in third movement. And then that field is what's preventing us from picking up too many stones. We can only pick up the amount of stones we dropped, regardless of how many stones may be in that occupant, because you can kind of go on top of occupants. Dropped in third movement, not option 4. Okay. So let's see. Same grid, our third movement row and column. And then same option, except here we want to save up is pressed and our dropped in third movement is greater than 0, meaning we have dropped something in our third movement, then we can pick it up. And then as we pick it up, it'll decrement. So if we've only dropped 1, it'll get back to 0, and then if we press up again, 0 is not greater than 0, so it won't execute. Let's double check our movement event 5 and see if it's looking consistent. See, we need to do these dropped in second movement greater than 0, yep. And then same option, same grid, yep. So if enter is pressed, then depending on, here's where we would say, if enter is pressed and we have no occupants, and we're off grid. Now, off grid is getting populated upon the next movement, which we didn't do in our movement event 5 here. Yeah, so if we take a look at our movement event 4, we need to see where we use this off grid. Next move off grid, right before we shift movement events, we run our off grid function, which let's see, we're doing it in our movement event 3. So let's check our movement event 4. We are doing it in our movement event 4. Let's see if I don't think we're doing it in our movement event 5. Oh yeah, we are. But I think this needs to be our third movement. because we just update our next movement based on our direction lock. So we're passing in this third movement to determine what the next move off grid would be. So if this is an edge in the same direction that would make us go off screen, our off grid would be true, and then when we lock in our enter, our logic here would prevent us from, if we're off grid, we would have to have 0 occupants before we swap our players. So that's how we're kind of controlling that. And we did actually have this in movementEvent 5. Now, this is saying we need to update our indexes here. This is jacked. We shouldn't be. Why would we be changing our first movement to be occupied at this point? Let me check our grid occupied over here. Yeah, it should be just our same movement. So let's just go ahead and change that. Dark movement. See, we're actually missing something. Right here, no, we're not, because we've got it covered down here, dropped in. This would be third movement. And then we just need to keep updating all of this. Okay. This is why you don't copy stuff, because it's so easy to miss one thing here. Ideally, I do want to move all of this enter logic into a separate function, because we reuse it so many times. Okay. But there's a lot of variables we change. You know, we change. Well, we'd have to pass in 2 parameters for our current grid. We would need to pass in we'd have to pass in an option to kind of select what we're doing, but then we have to pass in another option to be what we're coming from. So it's a little confusing, but so here we need to lock in our 4th movement based on our direction and based on us being not off grid and dropping at least 1 stone in our 3rd movement, and we don't have 0 occupants. So we've dropped not all of our stones, which is what this comment says. Now we're going to be incrementing our 3rd movement to get our 4th, or modifying it. And then, see, it's like we already did all the legwork for all this functionality, because it's the same type of move we need to do for a movement event 5, except we need to drop the stone in a different spot, and we need to update the next spot differently. So it's the same idea, just slightly different variables here. And then this would all be fourth. And we need to initialize this fourth movement row and column as well. Okay. So enter is asking us questions about our off-grid to determine what to do with that logic, and the off-grid is getting populated every move switch going into that movement event. It gets populated with an off-grid for the newest locked-in grid. So this off-grid it's asking is a result of this function. And then we'll do it again. I actually don't think we need to do it again, because we need to end our, you can't move more than 5 spots away. So we would just ensure that enter only swaps the player if our occupants are 0 at that point. So we wouldn't need to save in a new direction for our movement event 6. But let's give us these two variables here, both in our reset board function and our player swap. So we've got row and we've got column, and then we need to put it in our player swap. Okay. Now, do we test it? Movement event 6. This would need to go to movement event 7. Oh, no, that's right, because we're in movement event. Wait, yeah, movement event 6. Yeah, this would be 7. So if we pick up our max stones, we can have a first movement, second movement, third movement, first movement, second movement, third movement, fourth movement. So yeah, we should be able to have, a 7 movement event. And see here, this is what I was talking about with our, we don't need to check if enter how many locked in grids. And in our notes here, we actually didn't mention if you're stuck at the end of an off grid to force you to drop all the stones, but we made it, actually, yeah. For our movement event 7, we have it so you can't pick up stones because you must drop them. Wait, that's a design decision we can get to, but we're going to switch our movement event to 7 here. And then not do anything at the moment, but I guess let's just see what's happening in our movement event 6. So we're locking it in, dropping a stone. Now movement event 6, we should be able to drop the stone and it should adaptively resize. It does. Now if we pick it up, it should go back to where it was in terms of sizing, and it does. Now if we hit enter, it shouldn't do anything because there's nothing dropped in our third movement, and that looks to be the case. And if we do drop it and then we press enter, our next grid should actually, we haven't programmed it to be dark green just yet, but our off-grid is false. So if we say right here, we give ourselves our movement event 7, and we say, hey, if we're moving event 7, then go ahead and take our grid at our 4th movement, row, and column. And we're going to change our move locked highlight field to be equal to true. So now, if we hit enter after dropping a stone in our 3rd movement, our 4th movement should get populated in that space. So what did I do wrong here? 1, 2, 3. Yeah, let's give us hold on, let me just test something. I'm gonna test our off-grid here should be true, which it is, meaning pressing enter does nothing, but pressing enter when you have no stones switches the player. We need to give ourselves one more stone to test this. Under our tester, let's go ahead and say we need one more stone, and it's gonna be a number 4, and it's gonna be black, and it's gonna be, why not a standing stone? Why not? We would need to make sure to set our grid 1-3 occupants. Oopsie. Occupants gets 4 at this point. So now we have a 4-stack tester. Now we should be able to test whether or not we can move. We need to be black's turn, but we can lock in our stones. We can lock in a direction to move, and then our direction is built for us. Now we're in a movement event 6. We can drop both stones, they adaptively resize. If we press enter, we don't move to movement event 7. And if we press enter here, it should move to a movement event 7, but if I still have a stone and I hit enter, it should render this one green, which it does. Now, if off-grid is true, actually, we're not even doing that. Yeah, we don't need to do that because in our movement event 7 logic, we just need to say drop all your occupants, otherwise enter won't do anything. So it's looking right. I guess the thing I want to test is whether or not, well, our off-grid, yeah, I want to see if our off-grid is working on our 3rd movement grid. So if we shift our row down for our tester stack, then we should be able to see if our off-grid logic is working by the time we're at the end of a 3rd movement. So let's see that. So we're black's turn, we lock it in, drop, and then now our off-grid is true. So pressing enter won't change it. If we drop a stone in there, it won't change it, which was just the case. We were just able to only drop 1 stone there, but since we're off grid at this moment, we have to drop all of our stones in order to switch our players there. So it's looking like it's working. I haven't tried moving capstones in forever, so let me make sure we can actually do that. Okay, so like we can say a move capstone on top of there. That works. We can say black's turn. This is not a legal move. Actually, we lock it in. Only got those legal moves. We can't drop it there. And then let's see if we lock in this, drop in 2. Look at that. Look at that. That is a mistake. So what we need to do is check. We need to check if our next move is a legal move or not, which we're not doing. We do it upon our movement selection, or whatever you want to call it. We do it upon here, upon our movement event 2. Actually, it would be movement event 3. See how this is, it knows it's a capstone, so it's not a legal move. But we're not really using legal moves once our moves are locked, but we still need to check whether or not it would be a legal move. So, where in our code would we need to do this? It would be every time we're dropping a stone past, anytime we're dropping a stone past our movement event 3. So our movement event 3 is working for it, but if we drop a stone, the first time our grid gets locked in for us, which is end of movement event 4. Let me write this down. End of movement event 4. We need to check if next move is a capstone or a standing stone. And if so, we need to make sure, well, let me think. Yeah, shoot, this is tricky. Because basically we need off-grid to become effectively true if the next grid is a capstone or standing stone, because our off-grid is toggling us mandatorily dropping all of our stones because there's no legal move in front. So instead of it being off-grid, it could kind of be like next legal move. I used off-grid because I assumed we'd be off the grid and that's the only scenario, but we need to check for those other stones in control. So I have to go house sit for a friend. We almost got this done. We got a lot of movement event 6 done, which is really good. We've got, this much of movement event 6 done, but we need to ensure that we're gonna remember what we just discovered, which is upon locking in next move, check if stone control is capstone or standing stone. If so, off grid gets true. Something like that. I don't know if, do we use off grid or something else? And this would depend. This would depend on when we're resetting our off grid, I think. So we're just gonna have to dig through and make sure that's working correctly. I just don't have the time to flesh out that function now in the next 15 minutes, and I gotta leave soon. So we got most of our movement event 6 done, which is nice. But we did find a major bug. And once that's taken care of, we need to make sure that's taken care of anytime we lock in our next movement. We need to check. So like, when we run our next movement grid, it'll give us our next movement. And at that point, it'll give us whether or not we're off grid or not. But then we need to say, by the way, if the next movement row and column happens to be a capstone or standing stone, regardless of whether or not we're not off grid, we need to become off-grid because off-grid's the variable that's deciding how many stones we need to drop in order to advance. And it prevents us from advancing if off-grid is true, which we would need if the next stone is a CapStone or StandingStone. So it would be something right here. Anytime we do this, we would say add. Or it'd say if next grid dot stone control is equal to CapStone or StandingStone. Then off-grid would effectively become true. Even though we wouldn't be off-grid, we would be not a legal move. So maybe we should have prevented this, or if we could have foreseen this also being the same type of deal as being an off-grid, we would have made our off-grid variable be something like next legal move gets truer or something like that. Impossible next move gets true or something. But I have a feeling that this is where we would need to decide that. Because once we lock in our second movement, or once we lock in our third movement, then we're asking, yeah, we'd be locking in our third movement, which would then determine if the next grid, okay, I think that's right. I think it is. But yeah, we'll get to that tomorrow. It might be on my laptop tomorrow because I'll be over at Andy's, but I'll try to make it work. I'm not going to do a git diff because it's pretty much the same exact code for movementEvent 5, but I'm going to say added movementEvent 6 logic, and then I want to say found a bug where found a bug where can drop stones on CapStone, which we need to fix, then git push, and I will see you guys tomorrow. We're coming up on the end, you know. movementEvent 7 is going to be the easiest movement event to code for, and we almost got all of movementEvent 6 done today. We basically did, minus that one bug. So once we do that one bug, we'll knock out movementEvent 7, and then we'll do some rigorous testing to make sure we can't figure out how to do something wrong. So like we'll be trying every possible combination of buttons in hopefully every possible combination of moves to test whether or not it's functioning correctly. And then do that final bug hunt, and then we're on to win state, and then we're on to polishing it up. So it's going good.